Hello, and welcome to Against All Odds podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest and always, Rebel Ray. And we have here the newly graduate to walk the stage and grace the stage, RCollins. He's coming into the feed. He had to go out of town to actually receive his diploma by walking across the stage. And so we celebrate him. And we celebrate him in such a great way. To everyone that really doesn't know our Collins story, he really beat the odds. Doing 10 years in various federal penitentiaries. And even before that, having to navigate himself through waters that oftentimes are murky and they're sometimes hard to navigate, right? With certain elements that are not put in place, right? And so, if any one of you know, we celebrate education, we celebrate just attaining your goals as much as that's needed to be heard from various people. It needs to be normalized, that it can be. So, shout out to him. He is out of town at this moment. I am here located in the studio. So there might be some bouncing around that's happening, but hello, brother. Hello. Can you hear us okay? So as he's trying to respond, I want all of you to understand how important it is that the education that we see our goals through. Art Collins, are you
It's
able to?
important.
Okay, there you go. Hi, Art Collins. We were waiting for you to come in.
What's up?
It's super important.
Hmm.
Okay, you're still breaking up where you're at. We wanted to kind of give you a shout out and you come in and chime in and see if
Okay.
you were able to, yeah, see if you were able
Yes.
to do.
Yes.
Okay, so
Exactly.
you're coming in, you're coming in a lot. Like the feed is not good. Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear. Yeah. Yeah. I can hear. Hello. Hello, everybody. Just waiting to see what Rebel got going on.
Okay, brother. Where you're at, where you at, the signal's really bad. Like we can't hear you, and you're going in and out. It's really, really bad. So, did you want to rejoin? We're going to remove you, or can you get somewhere where we can rejoin? Can you hear us a little bit? Okay, you're still. We're gonna continue. If you can, I'm going to see if you can get a better feed where you're at. Okay. So, just current events. Mark Collins is also celebrating his 9-year anniversary. So, shout out to him and Black Love and being able to do that. We lost two great leaders in our small town community here in Stockton, California. And that was Miss Mabel Choice, who was an educator and a counselor, an all around mentor for many, 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 many young girls for many, many generations. Greatness has come out of her in a way where her legacy, at the age of 85, I believe, she was born in 1937. At the age of 35, she transitioned on, um, and she is now at rest with the hands of the Father. And so we wanted to uplift her on Against All Odds because it's important to acknowledge our elders and our ancestors who have gone before us. She was affectionately known as Nana to her mentorees and different ones that really,
Definitely.
yeah, that really loved her. Um, and so also too, we wanted to uplift um, Bishop Henry King. Bishop Henry King has now transitioned into the hands of the Father. Um, he was a mentor, a scholar,
Hmm.
an educator, um, and he advocated in his own way for his community. And so many of you who know his daughter, she does a lot of work in the community and broadcasting. Shout out to Amanda King and also his other children who also play large roles here in the community. We want to uplift them and send love their way. RCollins and I really are standing with the family. Because when they're elders and it's been a pillar of our community, it's also a heavy weight that you often share. Um, you have to share your parents. You have to share others in the community with others in the community. So that can be hard, right? So we want to uplift those families and every family that's had a loss, being cognizant and being empathetic. So, Art Collins, are you coming in okay? I see. Can you tilt your head a little bit, or is you're still coming in as a still picture? Okay. We really tried to add Art Collins. He is on his grad slash anniversary trip, but he really wanted to be here today to support you all. It's important. There's a lot of events that's happening. One of the most controversial events that we're seeing right now in the community is the need to push mandated vaccines and not give people the option. Um, and when it's mandated and your job is on the line, you're you're either pushed to want to get the vaccine no matter what, right? And it was funny because I seen this equate as like an antichrist move, right? I see like in the comments philosophically, even when you talk about civil liberties and you talk about constitutional rights, what's constitutional, what's ethical, what's logical, to somehow, you know, take it upon yourself to be responsible to get this vaccine so you won't infect your brethren. Um, and so we know historically there has been a genocide of actions that have been taken out on marginalized people of color, individuals who have struggled with finding equality in healthcare due to being illegal, test subjects, and to the point where it caused either sterilization in our communities of color. The history and the research and the data is there, um, all the way up from past the Holocaust, right? We've seen a lot of fear around the unknown, the around when a disease or epidemic comes about, and then there's this quick, you know, way to try to fight a disease. So there's a lot of confusion, a lot of misinformation. Against All Odds is in support of bringing you views from different views and different ways on how we view things. But it's important that we get the right information. And so, RCollins and I were constructively looking for advocates or other individuals who know the historical trauma behind vaccines and also immunizations and certain mandated vaccines that have happened in the UK or US abroad. A lot of times, colonized oppression looks a little different, and it doesn't always come as, hey, the N word, we're going to lock you up, right? That's one form of oppression we see in this prison system. But there's other ways where people of color have unfortunately been treated unequal historically, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to healthcare disparities and what we're believed to have. So there's this this real push about mandating. As you know, our governor has mandated the vaccine to go forth. He has pushed the vaccine to go forth, and I kind of just wanted to hear on the comments what people were thinking, what people were feeling about the mandated vaccines, what people are sharing, what type of information. Um, I've heard from many healthcare workers that the vaccine in itself is not the actual virus. And so introducing it into your body will give you those certain mimic symptoms of COVID, but it should not initially kill you. However, there have been outliers to certain statistical information. And so hopefully those individuals, such as the CDC, who hopefully those organizations can capture information that will help us and support either being vaccinated or not being vaccinated. And here's why, right? So I'm all for different views. I don't share my view on the vaccination. I share other ones. I understand that having influence on people's decisions can really come apart from that. And so I'm very, very careful with saying certain things, right? Amongst other things, with the governor mandate, we're seeing an influx in mandates against pro life and pro choice. Um, there are things that are happening even in our sister states, such as Texas and some of the other conservative, very, very conservative states, where we're seeing this push to once again control the option of women and their health care. And that's where it comes down to. Whether you're pro choice, whether you're pro life, it is still big government impeding on our abilities as women to exercise certain health rights. Um, and so a lot of times this can be a real topic that at times can be sensitive. So I want to be like really careful how I talk about pro choice or pro life. There have been many, many experiences and perceptions that come into this dialogue. I know that's one thing that we definitely could explore it on Against All Odds. Um, and I think it's imperative. I think it's imperative that we have a conversation to help with people who don't know how to even have the conversation, to really analyze the role of the church, right? The role of the church has somewhat pushed certain agendas on women, sometimes unequally, right? Um, and that's hard to hear. That's hard to hear. Um, and in all things, we celebrate life, right? Sometimes life is given through instances of not being ready, not wanting to be committed to the next person and have a child, or um, life was conceived through hardship. through trauma. And some people, they cannot physically even think of the ability of having a baby by someone who victimized them. That's a real perspective. Whether it's not your view, it's a real perspective. It has happened. And then you have individuals who, are stuck like kind of in between. Like, I support pro choice, but I don't support pro choice in regards to using it as like a form of birth control. So every time you get pregnant, you go to the doctor, you take care of that on your baby. Now, I know it's stress to the womb. Abortions are stress to the womb. Um, Higher abortion type surgeries on your body does things to your body, right? It does things to your emotional mind also, right? And then if you're a further traumatized individual, you have that history, it can be really, really hard. And so RCollins and I, we had that discussion a little bit earlier. We were hoping to talk about that and bring that into view. I think it's important to hear from the male's perspective also. Males are just as givers, they bring life also. And so, a lot of times males are not brought in. It's females. It's all on the female to reproduce. And so, at this point in evolution, it takes two. You see it, I said at this point in evolution. Some of you all don't believe in evolution, and or theories around it. So I'm not even going to bring that to this platform. But yeah, it was funny because we had a beautiful day today. We went out and supported the Echo Chamber and his work with certain organizations, healthcare organizations, to try to reach out to the inner city children. We had a $500 handball tournament and a $500 basketball tournament, and the winners got cash. That was really awesome for the young people. They were able to split it up with their teammates. That was nice. Um, and so we were able to be out there and connect as the People's Empowerment Center offering those services, and then seeing the Echo Chamber really, check in with our inner city youth. I'm noticing, like, in this digital divide, the inner city youth are really struggling with the whole digital divide too. They may not be saying as much, but being in the house always, not really being able to still play everything sports, everything the way things used to be before COVID. Large crowds, very large crowds. There is a mandate now, especially in certain areas, high metropolitan areas in California, where you got to be vaccinated or show a vaccinated card with all of your shots and your boosters, I believe, sometime. I think it's mostly just your 2 shots. Your first one initial and your follow-up to get into theaters, to get into restaurants, to get into events, right? Concerts. So if you want to go back, they're making you show the vaccinated card. Now, other people have been getting around that with traveling and getting around it with getting fake vaccination cards. That's been happening. And then there's others who just say, hey, I just saw a friend or had a friend, and the friend lost their life due to COVID. I'm gonna go and get it. This is just too much. It's too close to home. So it's a lot of scenarios that going on. I want to offer the lens today of the one scenario I didn't quite think of, because it has been almost 20 years since the vaccination was given. But I, Rebel Rae, got a chance to meet a former soldier who went over after 9/11 to the Middle East and was told that he had to get the anthrax vaccination, and the anthrax vaccination gave him a world of trouble. in the outcomes, right? And so he himself, a beautiful, natural born citizen who, you know, loves his country. He dedicated more than 10 years to his country serving. He refused the vaccination. And so, as educated and loving people, we support other people's decisions, the autonomy for themselves. Do we keep ourselves safe? Yes. And um, it's really, really hard to have this discussion even right now between family members. You have some family members who have pre-existing conditions and they cannot get sick. You have some family members, they love to travel, so they're going to take the vaccination. So it's this whole panic that's happening again, with the vaccination mandates. And am I going to be able to keep a job if I work for the state, if I work for the federal government, if I work for any type of government? Are they going to make all government employees take the vaccination? And so it's getting really hard to even throw events, right? So I want to shout out to the Echo Chamber. They were able to get out there today and really engage the kids. Um, and when you kind of doing that type of organizational work, it is very, very hard, right? Um, because you put yourself at risk. Let's just be honest. You're putting yourself at risk, but you know you got to engage the people. A lot of people are burned out about Zoom, right? They've been watching podcasts, listening to Zooms, interacting virtually. And so it is getting to the point um, where it has now reached our school kids. And you heard it right. So right now we're at the 700,000 mark in U.S. deaths for COVID. The governor has now mandated COVID-19 vaccines for school age children. So already there's mandated vaccines to get in to certain schools, mostly schools, unless you're homeschooled. And so let's talk about this. What does it do to our economy? Most marginalized individuals really depend on the school system to help out with their schools. Most mommy and daddies, they cannot, absolutely not, try to work one or two jobs and hustle, which we all know we have to do in California, unless you're making at least $100,000 a year. Um, they work a lot of in high concentrated poverty areas. They work a lot of warehouse jobs, farming jobs, agriculture, factory, industry type jobs, service jobs, right? Those children are in school most of the time. And after school, they go to extracurricular activities where they're around other children. And so, because they believe that children are one of those super spreader individuals that can do that, they're making the mandate. So, as early as January, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration fully approves inoculations for their age groups. California is the most populous U.S. State. And so at this point, it's reported an average of more than 2,000 deaths per day over the past week. So more than 2,000 deaths per day over the past week, representing about 60% of the peak in January. So that's where we're at, right? So come January, you're either pulling your kids out of school or you're keeping them in there and you're getting the vaccination. I imagine the requirement for the vaccination will probably be at the school site so they can inoculate everyone fully and somehow keep their dibs on it. Yeah. So again, Rebels just giving you information. I do a lot of reading. I sit in a lot of coalition meetings. And I often bring various lenses that I hear counseling. I bring the trauma with that, like as far as my self trauma, but the lenses of the people I serve. And a lot of people are very, very much scared. There is a fear of a vaccine. There is a fear, especially for marginalized people when what we call in the barrios, in the hoods. Oftentimes they had did things to lower class individuals. One of the most amazing studies that I still cringe today is the Tuskegee Airmen and Tuskegee syphilis study, right? That is amazing that they were able to inject syphilis and then give no treatment. So they were able to see how Black people either resisted or fell victim to syphilis. And if you can look at the syphilis symptoms, very, very large sores, very painful, flu-like symptoms, pops up all over your body, your genitals. It's very, very painful. And that's the history. And that's, less than 200 years ago history. It may seem a long time for you, but certain individuals in the Black and Brown community, they don't really forget certain stuff like that. So, again, we saw it with smallpox um, during the colonization of Native Americans and indigenous people. Biochemical welfare has been in place since the beginning of time. Plagues of Egypt being one of them, right? We've seen it very, very ancient. And unfortunately, mankind has been able to harvest those type of biochemical welfare that they use in other humans. So on to, I guess, good things to be celebrated. A beautiful artist, and let me get his name. I don't have any crew members or anyone here today, so you have to bear with me if you don't mind. But there is an African American artist who was able to reveal the portrait of Breonna Taylor in statue form, and George Floyd. And I'm going to give you the information on where they actually placed it. Beautiful, beautiful sculptures. And when I tell you that our structures of our faces were celebrated, our full lips, our large noses, they were celebrated in his sculptures. It really captured the essence of each individual. Now, there's conversations about this on both sides. There's George Floyd is not a martyr. Breonna Taylor is not a martyr. There are people, unfortunately, that got killed by being caught up in a world of mess, right? They like to kind of keep it very, very simple, right? When people do that, they kind of minimalize the whole movement and the understanding of what it really meant when that happened. It was an awakening that happened on both sides. The world has seen it many, many times. We've captured it on camera many, many times. But it's something about how George Floyd died in front of all of our eyes that disturbed us. It traumatized us. And it left a piercing image in how we continue to struggle and repeatedly ask for certain freedoms and to be in a dignified way handled by the police. Even when in trouble, right? There's a way that police community can interact in a way that doesn't cause further trauma. And we saw that. Um, and as a community, it really woke us. And I think that's what these statues really encompass. It encompassed the image. Don't forget, don't forget. We watched 9 minutes of a black man suffering under a knee of a white man. Do not forget. Don't forget that. No, no, no. And then our dear sister Brianna, basically resting in her own home with a no knock warrant, without any reason, fired and took her beautiful soul. Those were two major incidents among thousands now that were captured in 2020 and beyond. Um, and so there will always be kind of these landmark cases, just like, you know, Plessy versus Ferguson, our civil liberties, the Emancipation Proclamation. These are things that we will see. But you know what I learned? We are so traumatized, right? We're traumatized as Black folks. Let's talk about it. Altogether, we're super sarcastic and cynical. When that was going up, the gram and Twitter and everything else was lit, of course, and everyone was talking about, you know what, that's beautiful, that's nice, right? Again, minimalizing a way that we express ourselves. We heal from the pain because art, that's what we do. We do. And saying, when they gonna give us our reparations? When they gonna do this? When they gonna do that? Oh, white folks don't just come behind it and they're gonna break it down anyway. And so you hear all of these things. I think everyone has every right to say those things. I think it's really hard, even as a progressive Black, an activist myself, to really hear those things because I'm continually doing the work. I know RCollins tries to reach out with the community and do certain work for the community. And so when you're so solution focused, you do tend to not think of the negative. You really do. So it's hard. You come to a conclusion where you gotta constantly look at history and what history gave us to. Uh, History repeats itself many, many times, unfortunately, for people of color. Until we realize exclusively who we are and we rise up as one in a way where we can empower each other, we can have economic development, finances the way we need to, financial literature and legacy, meaning you're passing that on down, you're passing that information on how to maintain financial security. And I think until we get there as a platform, there are always going to be these cynics that come up. There are always going to be these traumatized individuals. And notice, even if there are resources out there, there are some people who have a hard time with trying to. That's the baby at the door. I'm sorry, everybody. Who is trying to actually overcome, right? There are individuals who, at the same time, are trying to maintain their ability to look at a brighter day. But it's hard. It's getting hard. One moment, everybody. I'm almost done. One moment. Okay, everybody, I'm actually back. Hopefully, I muted my mic right. And so, as you can see, Rebel Ray always is juggling. And so, little man was getting restless. It's always late for him on studio nights. But that's all we had for today. We always, our Collins and I, appreciate your ability to get on and support us. And you support us with your stories. You support us with the love that you have for us when we see you all in the streets. We were just talking about that. When we see you at events, you always have beautiful things to say. And so we thank you once again. And we love you. And we're going to say bye bye, Amir. We're going to say bye bye. Bye bye. Amir Giovanni in the podcast studio. He has had enough, and we're going to say good night. We love you all. Thank you for watching. Email us at aaopodcasts at gmail.com. We are open to new topics. We're open to new views. You never know who's listening. You never know who needs to hear something different to be inspired. And so we want to bring that to our viewers. If you have any announcements, please email us also. I'll drop that in the text on the online and how important that is too, that we connect in the community. So you all take care. Thank you for bearing with me today. Being a mommy and being a therapist and a professor and an organizer and advocator, you got to be mommy first, right? Mommy, and do all those things. So thank you all and good night. Say good night. Say good night. We love you guys. Bye bye. Take care.